Hey Reddit, the celebration ended before it even began. I stood at the front of the modest but beautifully decorated wedding venue, facing rows of pristine white chairs, all completely empty. The bouquet in my hands felt like it weighed a ton, my fingers trembling so much that one of the petals slipped onto the floor. The photographer kept shifting his camera in his hands, looking like he wished he could vanish into thin air. Before we start, drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from, and after you hear the whole story, tell me honestly, what would you do in my place? Should we give it a few more minutes? The event coordinator whispered, her eyes flicking toward the massive double doors like she expected them to fly open any second with a crowd of laughing guests. I swallowed, my throat raw from forcing fake smiles for over an hour. It's been 45 minutes, I said, keeping my voice steady. They're not coming. My maid of honor, Lily, my only true friend, gave my hand a squeeze and a gentle, pitying smile. Forget them. You look stunning. But my chest ached. It wasn't just that they weren't here. They had chosen not to be here. Every single one of them, my parents, cousins, aunts, uncles, even the distant relatives who'd RSVP'd months ago, were at my brother's extravagant business launch. My father had been hyping it up for months. I'd booked my wedding date long before my brother even announced his opening. No one tried to split their time between the two events. Instead, they told me, you'll understand, it's important for him. And so, here I was in a hall so quiet the air conditioner's hum felt like mockery. The officiant cleared his throat. Do you still want to go ahead? No, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. Not like this. Not when it's supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Lily gave me a sharp look. You're calling it off? No, I whispered, tears burning my eyes. I'm just not letting them take this from me. I reached for my phone, ready to toss it into my clutch, when the screen lit up. A text from Ryan, my groom-to-be, smile. I frowned, glancing around the room, but he wasn't there. Then another alert popped up, a call log. 63 missed calls from Mom, Dad, Uncle David, Aunt Karen, my brother, even the home landline. The same people who couldn't be bothered to show up. Lily's eyes widened. What on earth? I tapped the first voicemail. My father's voice came through, panicked. Emily, call us back immediately. You need to tell us what's going on. Before I could react, Ryan appeared in the doorway, not in a tux, but in a sharp navy suit, his expression cool and unreadable. He gave me a small, deliberate smile, the kind that said he'd already set something in motion. You ready? He asked. Ready for what? For the moment they figure out they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Without another word, Ryan took my bouquet, set it aside, and led me out of the empty venue. The valet brought our car around, the evening air cooler than it should have been. My phone buzzed again, Mom, Dad, Jason, all calling frantically. What's happening? I asked as Ryan drove off. He gave a faint smirk. Your family's little launch party isn't going as planned. The bank froze their accounts. I whipped my head toward him. What? Why? Remember that loan you co-signed for Jason years ago? Turns out your name is still on the company's assets. I just asked the bank to confirm your consent. That automatically put a hold on things until it's resolved. You did this today? I said. They chose today, he replied simply. Now they'll remember you matter more than they thought. Another call flashed on my screen. Ryan nodded toward it. Put it on speaker. I answered. Dad's voice was sharp. Emily, fix this. The investors are here, and the bank is holding everything. Jason's voice cut in, furious. If this is about your wedding, grow up. We'll take you out to dinner later. A cold steadiness settled over me. You skipped my wedding. Now you can come see me, 7 p.m., Grayson House. Apologize first, then we'll talk about fixing your problem. Silence. Then Dad's voice, tight. Fine. Ryan squeezed my hand as I ended the call. Good, he said. You're finally setting the rules. By the time we reached Grayson House, the sun had dipped low, casting the glass towers in warm amber light. Ryan had picked the location well, classy, neutral, and public enough to keep tempers contained. We reserved a private glass-walled meeting room. The polished floor reflected the soft pendant lighting, and the long table gleamed. Ryan wrote 7 p.m. on the whiteboard, underlining it. Punctuality counts, he said. At 6:55, Lily arrived, her expression fierce. If they try anything, I'm staying. No one corners you alone. At 7:10, the glass door finally slid open. My parents walked in first, Dad in an overly formal suit, Mom clutching her purse like armor. Jason followed, tense, with his CFO right behind him. Let's make this quick, Dad said, sitting down. I stayed at the head of the table. Before we discuss anything, you're going to apologize for missing my wedding. Not because it's polite, because it's the truth. Mom shifted. Emily, we didn't miss it. You didn't come, I cut in, voice calm but heavy. Dad's jaw tightened. Fine. The CFO leafed through the papers, his brow furrowing. If we clear the outstanding debt and send confirmation to the bank, the freeze will be gone by tomorrow? Correct, Ryan replied smoothly. But, he added, there are 3 extra requirements. Jason's head jerked up. Requirements? Yes, I said, meeting his eyes. First, you'll sign a declaration that my name was added under pressure and that you will never tie my finances to yours without my written consent again. Second, you'll repay every single personal expense I've covered for your projects. Third, you'll send me a written apology that includes my wedding. It'll stay private, I added. But I want it. Jason scoffed. This is extortion. This is called boundaries, Ryan said evenly. Something your family has never honored. Dad opened his mouth to argue, but the CFO cleared his throat. Jason, she's within her rights. The longer this drags out, the worse it looks to investors. Jason's glare could have burned through the table, but at last he muttered, fine. We'll do it. I didn't gloat. I simply leaned back in my chair, feeling, for the first time in years, that I wasn't the one trapped in a corner. The paperwork was signed before they left Grayson House. Ryan made sure there were 2 witnesses, Lily and the CFO, so no one could later deny it happened. Jason signed last, stabbing his pen into the paper as if each stroke was a punishment. Once they were gone, Ryan leaned back, letting out a slow breath. That's step 1. Step 1? I raised a brow. You'll see. The next morning, the phone started ringing again. Only this time, it wasn't just family. Calls were coming from numbers I didn't recognize, local business reporters, curious voices asking for statements about the launch fiasco. I ignored most of them, until Lily texted, turn on channel 6. The broadcast was already mid-story when I flipped on the TV. The reporter stood outside my brother's shiny new storefront, hair whipping in the wind, narrating over footage from the night before. Sources confirm a financial snag stopped transactions during the grand opening, leaving customers unable to pay. Several investors left early, and some vendors expressed frustration over delays. The camera cut to Jason, red-faced and gesturing wildly at a group of suited investors. Behind him, staff hovered awkwardly, handing out free coffee to keep people from walking out. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, Launch Day Freeze Raises Questions. Ryan came up behind me, coffee in hand, smirking. They'll blame it on a technical glitch, but the investors will dig deeper. The bank files will show exactly why it happened. And my name will be there, I murmured. Yep, Ryan said, not as the culprit, but as the guarantor they dismissed. The one they acted like didn't matter. It hit me then, not just that they'd ignored me on my wedding day, but that they'd been erasing me for years, even when my signature had literally kept them afloat. Before I could speak, my phone lit up again. This time, it was Jason. I let it ring out, but a text came seconds later. We need to talk. Now. Ryan glanced at it. They'll try to smooth things over. Translation, they'll want you to patch up their image without giving you credit. He was right. And for the first time in my life, I felt no obligation to give them what they wanted. By midday, the story had begun to circulate online. A few guests from the wedding had posted photos of the empty ceremony hall, tagging me and noting my family's absence. The posts weren't viral yet, but the picture was forming, and it wasn't flattering for them. That evening, my parents turned up at our apartment without warning. Ryan opened the door but didn't invite them in. Emily, my mother began, her voice a careful mix of concern and reproach, we need to get ahead of this. People are talking. Let them, I said, folding my arms. Everything being said is true. Dad's jaw clenched. This isn't good for the family's reputation. Then maybe the family should have cared about mine, I shot back. You made your priorities clear. So have I. Jason stepped forward, looking more drained than I'd ever seen him. Emily, please. Investors are pulling out. If you talk to them, reassure them. I cut him off. You want me to fix this? Admit publicly that I stood by you when you needed me, and you couldn't be there when I needed you. Otherwise, fix it yourself. The silence was heavy. Ryan stayed beside me, steady as a wall. Finally, Jason muttered something under his breath and turned away. My parents followed. When the door clicked shut, Ryan gave me a faint smile. Step 2, complete. And step 3? I asked. He grinned. That's when they realize you're not just the person they underestimated, you're the one they can't afford to ignore. 2 weeks later, the cracks in my family's perfect public image were wide enough for the whole city to see. It began with a small, easily missed piece in the local business section, tucked away on page 6. Launch day freeze linked to overlooked cosigner. Straightforward, almost dull, just a brief note explaining that my name had been on key loan documents, that the freeze was a routine banking procedure, and that it had been lifted the following day. But then the story spread. A well-known regional news blog picked it up, the type that thrives on stories with a personal twist. Their headline made people click, the sister they left behind, how skipping a wedding exposed a launch day fiasco. That's when the flood of messages began. Old college acquaintances, former colleagues, even distant relatives who'd never invited me to anything suddenly remembered I existed. Half wrote to offer sympathy. The other half wanted gossip. I ignored them all. Instead, I put my energy into building something that had nothing to do with my family. Ryan and I had been discussing it for months, turning my small freelance design work into a full creative studio. Now, with all this unexpected attention, the timing felt perfect. We rented a corner suite in a shared workspace, painted the walls the softest cream, and hung a sign on the door, Emily Gray Design. Lily helped craft the logo. Ryan handled the paperwork. I worked late, not because I had to, but because it was mine. Then came the gala. Each year, the city's Chamber of Commerce hosted a black tie fundraiser highlighting local entrepreneurs. Jason had been invited to present his new venture. I hadn't planned to attend, until an invitation showed up addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Ryan Gray. I knew exactly whose doing that was. You're thinking about going, Ryan said one night, watching me turn the heavy card in my hands. I'm thinking about showing them, I replied, but not the way they expect. On gala night, I wore a midnight blue gown that shimmered under the lights. Ryan, in a black tux, looked every bit the man who belonged in any room. As we entered, I felt the air shift, eyes turning, quiet murmurs starting. My parents were already there, Jason beside them, all three wearing expressions tight enough to crack. They didn't approach us right away. The evening moved through speeches, awards, and polite applause before the mingling began. That's when it happened. A small group of investors I recognized from Jason's launch walked past him and straight to me. "You're Emily Gray," one of them said warmly. We've heard quite a bit about you. Jason stood only a few steps away, jaw tightening. Yes, I said with a calm smile. I run Emily Gray Design. We focus on branding and digital strategy. They asked about my work, requested my card, and nodded with genuine interest when I shared details of recent projects. It was subtle, but unmistakable, the balance had shifted. My name carried its own weight now. Eventually, my parents made their way over. My mother's smile was thin but present. Emily, dear, you look beautiful. Thank you, I replied evenly. Dad cleared his throat. We wanted to say we're proud of what you're doing. The line felt practiced, like they'd rehearsed it on the way over. I appreciate that, I said, but I'm not doing any of this for your approval. Jason stepped forward, his voice quieter now. I know we handled things badly. I can't undo that. But maybe we could work together. Your design expertise could. No, I interrupted, firm but not unkind. You had years to see me. You didn't. And I'm not here to be a supporting act in your story. The pause that followed was heavy. Ryan took my hand, and together we walked away, leaving them under the chandeliers in a room full of people who had just witnessed the shift in control. That night, driving home, I watched the city lights stream past the window and felt something I hadn't in years, light, unburdened. They'll keep calling, Ryan said. I know, I answered, smiling faintly. But now they're calling me, and I get to decide whether I answer. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I owed them a thing.